Jake had never been one for excitement. He was an average college student who preferred spending his evenings in a quiet cafe rather than going out to parties. On this particular evening, he sat at his usual spot near the window, sipping on a hot cup of coffee. It was a calm Tuesday, the rain tapping gently on the glass. He liked the peaceful moments, the kind where nothing ever seemed to change. But tonight, something was different. He hadn't noticed her at first. Zara walked in with such grace that it was like she belonged to another world. She wore a simple white dress, but it shimmered as though it reflected the stars themselves. Her skin had an otherworldly glow, a soft golden hue that reminded him of a sunset he once saw on a beach. Her hair was long and dark, flowing like silk, with a natural wave to it. And her eyes, those deep emerald green eyes, pierced through the room, drawing everyone's attention, but it was Jake she was staring at. Jake shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He wasn't used to attention, let alone the kind that came from someone like her. He tried to focus on his coffee, but she had already taken a seat at the table across from him. It wasn't like she was sitting down by accident. She was looking directly at him. Her gaze felt almost ... knowing. "Is this seat taken?" she asked, her voice smooth and calm, with a strange accent that Jake couldn't quite place. Jake blinked. He opened his mouth to respond, but the words didn't come out right away. Was she talking to him? Was this a joke? No, go ahead. He managed to say, his voice sounding weaker than he wanted it to. She smiled, a smile that made Jake's heart race without understanding why. He watched as she settled into the seat, still keeping her eyes locked on him. There was something strange about her, something he couldn't explain. She looked so different, but in a way that felt comforting, almost like she was someone familiar. "So what's your name?" Zara asked, leaning in a little. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Jake," he replied, still unsure of what was happening. "And what's yours?" "Zara," she said, her smile growing even wider. "You have an interesting energy about you, Jake. Like you're not meant to be here, yet here you are." Jake raised an eyebrow. What did she mean by that? He didn't feel special? He was just a regular guy, trying to get through school? "I'm not sure what you mean," he said. Zara studied him closely, as though she was reading every thought that passed through his mind. Her eyes were intense, yet kind. "I think you'll understand soon," she said softly. Jake chuckled awkwardly, thinking she was just some eccentric person trying to make small talk. "Are you a tourist or something?" he asked, trying to break the tension. "Don't think I've seen you around here before." Zara's lips twitched in a half-smile. "I'm not exactly a tourist," she said, her tone shifting slightly. "I've been around for a while. It's just not in the way you might expect." Jake wasn't sure what to make of her words. He had heard strange things before, people telling tall tales, trying to be mysterious for attention, but there was something about Zara that felt different. Her presence was overwhelming, but in a way that made him want to stay, to learn more. He found himself asking questions before he even realized it. "So, where are you from? Like really from?" he asked, leaning forward in curiosity. Zara's smile faltered for a moment, and Jake thought he saw something flicker behind her eyes. It was brief, almost like a shadow. But then it was gone, replaced by the same confident and gentle smile. "I'm from a place far away, Jake, far beyond what you know. You could say I'm from the stars." She paused, her eyes never leaving his. "And you're a part of it now." Jake blinked. "What?" Zara laughed softly, but it wasn't mocking. It was soft, almost comforting. "Don't worry, you'll understand. This isn't just a random meeting. This is destiny." Jake laughed, unsure of what else to do. "Destiny? Are you serious?" Zara's expression didn't change. "Yes, I'm very serious." There was a strange silence between them, broken only by the soft hum of the cafe around them. Jake didn't know what to say next. He had assumed she was just another person trying to be funny, but something about her words didn't sit right. They felt too real, too ... true. "Well, it's been nice meeting you, Zara, but I've got to go. I've got class tomorrow." Jake stood up, trying to shake off the weirdness of the conversation. It was one of those moments that would make a great story for his friends, but he had a feeling they wouldn't believe him. As he turned to leave, Zara's voice stopped him. Jake, she called softly. He turned around, confused. Yeah, Zara. Stood, her eyes burning with an intensity he had never seen before. You're my forever, Jake. The words hit him like a punch to the chest. He felt his heart race, but not from fear. It was something deeper. Zara's gaze held him in place, and for a moment, the world seemed to stand still. He opened his mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Before he could respond, Zara smiled one last time. You'll figure it out soon enough. Don't forget what I said. Then, as if she had never been there at all, Zara turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving Jake standing there, stunned and unsure of what just happened. Jake couldn't stop thinking about Zara. Every time he closed his eyes, her smile, her strange accent, and those green eyes flashed in his mind. He tried to shake it off, telling himself she was just some eccentric woman who liked to play with people's heads. It was easy to laugh off the whole encounter as a weird one-time thing, but as days passed, something strange started to happen. It was subtle at first, little things that Jake couldn't explain. Kept having vivid dreams about Zara dreams, where they were standing together in places he'd never seen. Planets that didn't look like Earth and stars that burned in colors he had never imagined. It was always the same feeling. He was meant to be there with her. And that feeling didn't fade when he woke up. One night, unable to sleep, Jake decided to take a walk. The cool night air felt refreshing against his face, and he needed to clear his head as he walked through the quiet streets of the city. Couldn't escape the feeling that someone was watching him. He paused for a moment at the corner of a street and glanced up. The streetlights flickered slightly, but he wasn't looking at the lights. There, standing under the glow of the lamppost, was Zara. His heart skipped a beat. This time, she wasn't smiling. Her face was serious, even a little worried. Her eyes locked onto his, and she stepped closer, her movements graceful as always. Jake, she said, her voice soft but firm. I need to talk to you. It's important, Jake. Hesitated, not sure if he was dreaming or if Zara had somehow found him again. Aya, I didn't expect to see you again. What's going on? Zara stepped closer, her gaze never leaving his. You're not imagining it, Jake. Everything. That's happening to you, it's real. I'm not joking when I say you're my forever. Jake laughed nervously. I'm starting to think I might have bumped my head or something. You're saying this all seriously, but it doesn't make sense. Why me? I'm just a normal guy. Doris. Expression softened, her eyes almost looking ... sad. You don't believe me, do you? Jake swallowed hard. I want to, but ... I get it, Zara said, cutting him off. I didn't expect you to believe me right away. It's a lot to take in. But you need to understand something. What I said was the truth. Jake blinked, trying to understand her words. What do you mean, the truth, you're saying? There's more to this than I think? Zara nodded slowly. Much more. I'm not from here, Jake. I'm not from Earth. I've traveled far to find you. Jake looked at her, trying to make sense of what she was saying. She wasn't joking. The seriousness in her voice and eyes made it clear. But what was she talking about? So, you're telling me you came all the way from... Where? Zara paused, as though searching for the right words. I'm from a place that's far beyond Earth. My people are guardians of the universe, protectors of balance, and you, Jake, you're part of a prophecy. You're the one who's supposed to help us. You and I, our paths were meant to cross. Jake couldn't breathe for a second. His mind raced. Guardians? Prophecies? It all sounded like something out of a science fiction movie, but Zara's eyes weren't playing tricks on him. Real? You're saying I'm supposed to help you? ... with what? Zara took a deep breath. The galaxy is in danger. There are forces out there, other alien races, who want to control everything. And they've been searching for you, Jake. They know you're the key to everything. Jake shook his head.
What do you mean the key? I'm just a college student, Zara. I don't know anything about saving galaxies. Don't!
Need to understand everything right now, she said, her voice growing more urgent. But soon, you will. I've been watching you. You have something inside you, a power that's been waiting to be unlocked. Something that will help us stop the chaos from spreading. Jake didn't know whether to be terrified or amazed. He had never been interested in anything more than getting through school and living a normal life. The idea that he had some hidden power seemed impossible. You've got to be kidding. Not a hero. I'm just Jake. Zara's hand reached out, gently touching his arm. Her touch sent a strange warmth through him, and for a moment he felt connected to her in a way he couldn't explain. Jake, listen to me. I know this is a lot to take in, but you don't have to do this alone. I'm here. I will guide you through it. Jake looked down at her hand on his arm. He wanted to pull away, but he didn't. There was something about Zara that made him feel safe, even though everything she was saying seemed insane. But the way she looked at him like he was important made him want to believe her. Okay, he said finally. Let's say I believe you. What now? Zara smiled, her face softening. Now we have to go. There's no more time to waste. The others are coming for you, Jake. They've already begun searching for you. Who are the others? What do they want? The factions who want control of the universe, she replied, her voice cold with anger. They'll stop at nothing to find you, and they won't hesitate to do whatever it takes to get to you first. Jake didn't fully understand everything Zara was saying, but the urgency in her voice told him that things were about to change and fast. He wasn't sure if he was ready for whatever was coming, but one thing was certain. Zara wasn't going anywhere, and neither, it seemed, was the danger. All right, Jake said, his heart pounding in his chest. Let's do this. Zara nodded. Good, trust me, Jake. I promise you won't regret it. As they turned and walked into the night, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to be changed forever. And maybe, just maybe, Zara was telling the truth. Jake had no idea what he was getting into. A week ago, his biggest concern was figuring out his homework and dealing with the usual college life. Now, he was on the run with Zara, an alien from another world, trying to outrun forces he couldn't even begin to understand. It had all started when Zara had shown up at the cafe, claiming they were connected by destiny. She said he had a hidden power or something he didn't believe was possible. But now, as they moved through dark streets with Zara guiding him, Jake couldn't ignore the strange pull he felt whenever she was near. It was like he was drawn to her in ways he couldn't explain. And the more he listened to her, the more he began to question everything he knew about the world. They had been on the move for days, staying in abandoned buildings, always looking over their shoulders. Jake tried to keep a low profile, but the whole situation felt surreal. It wasn't like anything he had seen in movies or read in books. It felt like the world was changing right in front of him, and he was caught in the middle of it. We can't stay here long, Zara said one evening as they rested in a small, run-down building. Her voice was calm, but there was tension in her eyes. Jake noticed that she was always alert, always watching. It was like she could sense something he couldn't. What's going to happen if we do? Jake asked, rubbing his tired eyes. He hadn't gotten much sleep, and the constant running was taking its toll. But no matter how exhausted he felt, he knew he couldn't stop now. They'll find us, Zara replied, her tone serious. The factions I told you about, they're already looking for you. They know you're here, Jake, and they won't stop until they get what they want. Jake nodded, his mind spinning. What do they want with me? I'm just a regular guy. Zara looked at him, her green eyes softening. You're not just a regular guy, Jake. You have something inside us. You something that can change everything. Your power is what they want. They believe that with your help, they can control the universe. Jake shook his head, still trying to wrap his mind around it all. But I don't even know what this power is. How am I supposed to stop them? You don't need to understand everything right now, Zara said, moving closer to him. Here to help you? Together we can figure it out. Jake felt a strange warmth in his chest at her words. There was something about Zara that made him feel safe, even in the middle of all this chaos. Her confidence, her calmness in the face of danger, it was like she had been preparing for this moment her entire life. I don't know if I can do this, Jake admitted, looking down at his hands. I don't even know what this power is. What if I mess everything up? Zara smiled softly. You won't mess it up, Jake. You're stronger than you think. The power inside you is something you were born with. It just needs to be awakened. and I can help with that. Jake looked at her, unsure. How? How can you help me? Zara's smile faded, and she stepped back, her gaze turning serious. It's not going to be easy. Awakening your power will take time, and we're running out of it. The longer we wait, the stronger they get. We need to act fast. Jake felt a chill run down his spine at her words. What do we need to do?
Zara
didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned to the window, staring out into the night. They have to find the ancient artifacts. They're hidden, scattered across the galaxy. These artifacts are the key to unlocking your power. And once you're fully awakened, you'll be able to fight them. Jake tried to process everything she was saying. Artifacts, power he didn't understand. It all felt like too much. But the look in Zara's eyes told him she wasn't lying. She believed in him, even if he didn't believe in himself. We don't have much time, Zara said quietly, turning back to him. The factions know that if they get their hands on those artifacts, they'll be unstoppable. We can't let that happen. Jake nodded slowly, trying to calm the storm in his mind. He had no idea what he was getting into, but he knew one thing. He couldn't do this alone. Zara had made it clear that he had a role to play in all of this, and it was time to figure out what that meant. Where do we start? Jake asked, his voice steady. Zara's eyes glowed with determination. We start by going to a place called the Nexus. It's a hidden world, and it's where the first artifact is said to be kept. But we can't just walk in there. The place is guarded by creatures that will stop at nothing to keep the artifact safe. Jake took a deep breath. So, we're going to have to fight. Zara nodded. Yes, but you don't have to do it alone. I'll be right by your side. They didn't have much time to prepare. They needed to move quickly before the factions found them. Zara gave Jake a quick rundown of what to expect, how to harness his power, what kind of creatures they might face, and how to stay hidden. Jake wasn't sure if he was ready for all of this, but there was no turning back now. The universe was, depending on him, even if he didn't fully understand why. As they left the abandoned building and stepped out into the night, Jake couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and excitement. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure: he wasn't going to face it alone. Zara was with him, and together they were going to find the artifacts and stop the factions from taking control of the universe. Jake glanced at her as they walked through the streets. Do this. The bond between them was real, and it was growing stronger every day. He wasn't just an ordinary guy anymore. He was part of something bigger. The journey had begun. Jake's life had been turned upside down in a matter of days. The quiet, predictable world he had known seemed like a distant memory now. Quiet campus streets, the crowded cafes, and the small apartment he had called home. None of that seemed to matter anymore. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, and his role in it had just begun. Zara had told him that they couldn't waste any more time. Every moment they spent hiding, running, was a moment the factions were getting closer. The ancient artifacts were their only hope, and if they didn't find them soon, everything could be lost. So they left Earth. The plan was simple. Find the Nexus, a hidden world where the first artifact lay waiting. It was a world that was supposed to be untouched by the wars that raged across the galaxy. But Zara had warned him that nothing was ever as simple as it seemed. The ship Zara had taken him aboard was nothing like anything Jake had seen before. It wasn't big or imposing like the ships he'd seen in movies. It was sleek, fast, and quiet, designed for speed and stealth. The interior was a mixture of smooth metallic surfaces and soft glowing lights, almost like the ship itself was alive, breathing with them as they traveled through the stars. The hum of the engines was calming in a way, as if it was a lullaby for their new reality. Are you ready for this? Zara asked as she worked at the control panel, her fingers moving quickly over the buttons. She hadn't said much during the flight, but Jake could tell she was focused. Always alert. Jake sat in the seat next to her, looking out the small window. The stars outside were beautiful, but they didn't feel like the same stars he'd grown up with. These stars were distant, dangerous, and unknown. I don't know, he replied honestly. It feels like I'm in over my head, as Zara glanced at him, her eyes soft but full of determination. We all are, Jake, but that's why we have to do this. You're not alone. I'm here with you." The reassurance in her voice was comforting, but Jake still couldn't shake the feeling of being completely out of his element. He was just a guy from Earth. He had no training, no experience in intergalactic war, no idea how to unlock the power Zara said was within him. And yet, Zara believed in him. That was enough for now. Hours passed, and the hum of the ship seemed to grow louder. Finally, Zara broke the silence. "We're almost there," she said. "Get ready." Jake nodded, though he wasn't sure what he was getting ready for. They had no idea what awaited them on the Nexus. All Zara had told him was that it was a place of peace, a place where ancient knowledge was stored. But it was also heavily guarded, both by the creatures who lived there and by the factions who wanted the artifact. When they finally arrived, the Nexus looked exactly like Zara had described. It was a world of green forests and vast oceans, with towering mountains in the distance. The skies were a deep blue, and the air smelled fresh and clean. It was hard to believe that such a beautiful place could be caught in the middle of this war. But the peaceful exterior was only a facade. There was danger here, lurking beneath the surface. Zara stood up and turned to Jake. "We'll need to be careful. The Guardians of the Nexus are not like anything you've ever seen. They protect the artifact with their lives. But they're not our enemies. If we approach them with respect, we might be able to pass." Jake stood up, a little nervous but determined. "I'll follow your lead." They left the ship and stepped onto the surface of the Nexus. The ground was soft beneath their feet, and the air was thick with the scent of plants and flowers. The world seemed alive, humming with energy. Zara led the way, her eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. Jake stayed close behind, trying to keep up. The path they followed was lined with trees that were unlike any he had ever seen. Trunks twisted in strange shapes, their leaves shimmering in the sunlight. It was as though the entire forest was a living thing, watching them as they passed. The feeling of being observed made Jake uneasy, but he trusted Zara. She knew what she was doing. As they walked deeper into the forest, they came to a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a stone pedestal, on top of which rested the first artifact, a glowing, crystal-like object. But Jake could feel its power from where he stood, a warm energy that seemed to call to him. But before they could approach, a low growl echoed through the trees. Zara tensed. "Stay close," she whispered. "The Guardians are here." Jake's heart raced as three large, shadowy figures emerged from the trees. They were massive, covered in thick, dark fur. Their eyes glowed, a faint, eerie blue, as they slowly circled the clearing. Jake instinctively took a step back, but Zara placed a hand on his arm. "Don't move," she said quietly. "They're testing us. They want to see if we're worthy." The creatures didn't attack, but they didn't back off either. They watched, their glowing eyes fixed on Jake and Zara. The tension in the air was thick, almost unbearable. Jake's mind raced. He had no idea how they were supposed to pass these creatures. But Zara stood still, calm and unwavering. After what felt like an eternity, one of the Guardians stepped forward. It was larger than the others, its fur dark and thick, its eyes piercing. It sniffed the air, studying them both closely. Then, to Jake's surprise, it bowed its head slightly. "Zara," it said in a deep, rumbling voice. "You have returned." Zara nodded respectfully. "I have, Guardian. I come for the artifact, as the prophecy says. This is Jake. He is the one who will help us." The Guardian's gaze shifted to Jake. It studied him carefully, as if weighing his worth. For a long moment, Jake felt like he might collapse under the weight of its stare. But then, the creature stepped back, allowing them to approach the pedestal. "May take it," the Guardian said, its voice still low and steady. "But remember, your path will not be easy." Zara gave Jake a reassuring smile. "We're ready." Together, they stepped forward, and Jake reached out to take the artifact. The moment his fingers touched it, a surge of energy shot through his body, and for the first time, he felt the power Zara had told him about. It was like a fire had been lit inside him, and he could feel it growing, spreading through every fiber of his being. But before he could fully absorb the power, a loud roar echoed from the trees, followed by the sound of footsteps. The Guardians had warned them, but the danger was far from over. Jake had barely touched the artifact when the energy surged through him. It was unlike anything he had ever felt. A wave of heat, almost like fire, spread through his body, filling him with power and strength. His mind buzzed, and his vision blurred for a moment. But then, just as quickly as it started, the feeling stopped, leaving him breathless and dizzy. Jake. Zara's voice broke through the fog in his mind. She was kneeling beside him, her hands on his shoulders, her face filled with concern. "Are you okay?" Jake shook his head, trying to clear the disorienting feeling. I don't know what just happened." Zara helped him to his feet, her eyes never leaving his face. "You're fine. The artifact is awakening your power. But it's not easy. It takes time to adjust." Jake rubbed his head, still feeling lightheaded. He looked at the artifact in his hand. It was glowing softly, its crystal-like surface reflecting the light around them. The energy it had given him was real, but Jake still couldn't understand how it worked. "I don't feel much different," Jake admitted, his voice shaky. "You will," Zara said, helping him stand straight. "This is only the beginning. The artifact is a key to unlocking the power inside you, but the full power won't be unlocked until we've found the rest of the artifacts." Jake looked at her, trying to make sense of everything. "What is this power, Zara? What am I supposed to do with it?" Zara hesitated for a moment, her eyes narrowing as if she was trying to figure out how much to reveal. "You have the ability to manipulate energy, Jake. The power you've just unlocked can be used to protect, to fight. You'll be able to control the forces that others can only dream of." Jake took a step back, his mind racing. "That sounds dangerous. What if I can't control it?" "You can," Zara said firmly. "I'll help you. But you need to trust yourself. The more you learn about your power, the more you'll be able to control it. But right now, we don't have time to waste. The factions are still after us. And they'll be coming for the artifacts soon." Before Jake could ask more questions, the sound of heavy footsteps reached their ears. The Guardians had stepped aside, allowing them to take the artifact, but now it was clear that they were not the only ones interested in its power. The ground shook slightly as the footsteps grew louder. Zara stood up straight, her expression hardening. "We need to move now." Jake didn't hesitate. He had been warned.
Now the Guardians were not the only ones who would stop at nothing to protect the artifact.
Other forces were out there, and they were closing in fast. The ground trembled again, but this time it was followed by a deep, rumbling growl.
"Yes!"
Zara's eyes flashed with determination. "It's them," she whispered. "The ones we've been." Running from Jake, didn't have time to be afraid. Zara grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the ship they had arrived in. The Guardians watched from a distance, but they didn't stop them. They understood the urgency. But Jake knew they couldn't. Outrun the danger? The creatures chasing them were too powerful. They weren't going to let them leave without a fight. As they ran, the forest seemed to close in on them. The trees shifted and groaned as if the world itself was fighting against them. The creatures were getting closer, and the air felt heavy with the weight of their presence. Zara led the way, her pace steady as she navigated through the thick underbrush. Jake followed, his heart pounding in his chest. He could hear the growls getting louder, echoing through the trees. And then, in the distance, he saw them. Large, dark figures moving swiftly between the trees, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "There they are," Zara said, her voice low. "Get ready." Jake's breath caught in his throat as he saw the creatures coming closer. They were massive, their bodies covered in thick dark fur, their eyes glowing a fierce, eerie blue. They were fast, too fast for Jake to outrun. They were closing in fast, but as the creatures neared, Zara stopped in her tracks. She turned to Jake, her eyes flashing with a fierce determination. "Stay close to me," she ordered. "When I say go, run for the ship. I'll hold them off." Jake opened his mouth to protest, but Zara raised a hand, silencing him. "You're not ready for this fight, Jake. You're not ready to face them head on, but I am. Trust me, I'll keep you safe." For a moment, Jake hesitated, didn't want to leave Zara alone to face these creatures, but he knew she was right. He wasn't ready. Not yet. go," Zara shouted, pushing him toward the ship. Now, Jake didn't waste another second. He turned and ran, his legs pumping as he sprinted toward the ship. The sound of the creatures chasing them filled the air, but Jake didn't look back. He focused on the ship, his only goal, to get there and get inside. He was almost there when he heard the sound of the Guardians growling in the distance, warning the creatures to stay away. But the growls were soon drowned out by the sound of a powerful roar. The creatures were closing in. Zara, still behind him, shouted, "Go, go, go." Her voice was firm, and Jake pushed himself harder, the energy of the artifact burning inside him. He reached the ship and jumped inside just as Zara followed. The doors slammed shut behind them, and Jake collapsed into the seat, gasping for air. Zara didn't sit down. Instead, she moved to the controls, her fingers flying over the buttons. "Hold on," she said, her voice calm but urgent. The ships. Engines roared to life as Zara guided them away from the planet. They were escaping, but for how long? The factions were still out there, and now they had the artifact. The war was just beginning. Jake looked out the small window, watching as the planet disappeared into the distance. A wave of uncertainty washed over him. The power he had unlocked was real, but so were the dangers. Zara was right about one thing. Their path wouldn't be easy. But now, with the first artifact in their hands, they were closer than ever to stopping the factions. And Jake was ready. He had to be. The ship soared through the dark expanse of space, its engines humming steadily as it cut through the stars. Jake leaned back in his seat, his eyes fixed on the vast, endless blackness outside the window. It was hard to believe that just a few weeks ago he was a regular college student. Now, he was on the run with an alien woman, hunted by powerful factions, and holding a key to the fate of the universe. The artifact pulsed softly beside him, its crystal-like surface glowing faintly in the dim light of the ship's interior. Jake's mind was still spinning with everything that had happened. He could feel the power inside him, the energy that surged through his body every time he thought about it. But he still didn't fully understand it. Zara had explained it to him, but it was hard to believe something so extraordinary was real. He glanced at Zara, was standing by the controls, her eyes focused on the star maps. She had been so calm, so composed throughout all of this. But Jake could see the weariness in her eyes. He knew she had been carrying the weight of this mission alone for so long. Now, it was his turn to step up. "Zara," Jake said, his voice quiet but firm. "What happens when we find the last artifact? What if I'm not ready for this?" Zara turned to him, her green eyes softening as she studied him. "Jake, I know you're scared. Can see it in your eyes. But you've already unlocked your power. It's there. You just need to trust yourself. You are ready." Jake shook his head. "But how can I be ready? I've never fought anyone before, let alone faced the factions." "I'm not a hero." Zara smiled, her expression gentle. "You don't have to be a hero, Jake. You just have to do what's right. That's all anyone can ask of you." Jake's heart raced as he considered her words. She was right. Didn't have to be a hero. He just had to make the right choice, even if it meant facing things he wasn't prepared for. "What if I can't do it?" Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if I fail?" Zara walked over to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Her touch was warm, reassuring. "You won't fail. I won't let you." Jake met her gaze, and for the first time, he believed her. Zara had been his guide through all of this. She had shown him the way, even when he didn't understand. She had been the one to pull him out of the darkness and into the light, and now it was his turn to stand beside her. To fight for what they both believed in. "I'm with you," Jake said, his voice steady. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Zara's eyes softened, and she gave him a small nod. Together. The ship's control panel beeped, and Zara's attention shifted back to the screen. "We're coming up on the final destination. It's going to be dangerous, Jake. The last artifact is hidden on a planet that's been abandoned for centuries. The factions are already there, and they won't let us take it without a fight." Jake clenched his fists. He wasn't going to let the factions win. He couldn't. Not now. Not after everything that had happened. We can do this, he said, more to himself than to Zara. We have to do this. Zara smiled again, but there was a trace of sadness in her eyes. You've grown so much, Jake. I'm proud of you. Jake felt a warmth spread through him at her words. It wasn't just the power inside him that was growing. It was his confidence, his belief in himself, and his trust in Zara. Together, they were unstoppable. The ship descended toward the planet's surface, and the air grew heavier, the atmosphere thick with tension. Jake's heart pounded in his chest as he glanced out the window, seeing the jagged mountain peaks and dark forests below. The planet looked desolate, empty, but Jake knew better. It was a trap, a place where the factions were waiting to stop them from taking the final artifact. Stay focused, Zara said, her voice calm but firm. We're not just looking for the artifact, we're looking for the truth. Once we have, it will have everything we need to stop the factions. Jake nodded, taking a deep breath. He wasn't sure what awaited them on the planet, but he knew one thing. He wasn't backing down. This was his chance to make a difference, to fight for the future as they landed. The ship's doors opened, and the cold air rushed in. Jake stepped out first, his boots crunching against the rocky ground. Zara followed closely behind, her eyes scanning the surroundings. The planet was eerily quiet. There was no sign of life, no movement, but Jake could feel the presence of something powerful watching them. The energy from the artifact pulsed in his hands, and he could feel it pulling him forward, guiding him to the place where the final artifact was hidden. Let's go, Zara said, her voice low. We don't have much time. They moved quickly, staying close to each other as they navigated through the rocky terrain. The landscape was harsh, with jagged cliffs and deep ravines, but Zara seemed to know where they were going. She led Jake toward a hidden cave, one that seemed almost invisible against the backdrop of the planet's desolation. As they entered the cave, the air grew colder, and Jake felt a shiver run down his spine. The cave walls were lined with strange markings, symbols that seemed ancient, as if they had been carved into the rock by some long-forgotten civilization. Zara stopped in front of a large stone door, covered in more of the strange symbols. She turned to Jake. This is it.
The final
Artifact is behind this door. We're not the only ones who know it's here. Jake felt a wave of fear rush over him, but he didn't let it show. He had come this far. Couldn't turn back now. Together, they approached the door, ready to face whatever lay beyond it. The factions were coming, but they wouldn't stop him. He had made his choice. He was ready.